welcome to the White Paper Report. I am Brian Boyes, author of How to Write a White Paper in One Day. And sharing the screen with me is Gordon Graham, who is author of hundreds of white papers and also How to Write White Papers for Dummies. I keep getting the title of your book wrong. And basically, this is part two of, we're looking at a white paper that Gordon wrote with the help of ChatGPT, the artificial intelligence. And part one, we talked about a little bit about the process. If you want to know how he did it, watch that video. And we talked about some of the positives. It's the white paper it produced was really pretty good. This video is more going to be about the negatives and the drawbacks and things to be careful of. And so, Gordon, I'm going to throw it to you. Tell me, in the process of writing the white paper, some ways that you were a little bit let down or a little bit, the AI just couldn't hack it.
Sure. Well, I would think there is this new emerging discipline called prompt engineering, right? And it's really all about how you ask the AI to do something. So we are miles away from being able to push a button and have it crank out a beautiful white paper. That doesn't happen. And I think the more knowledge you bring to the screen to start with, the better results you're going to get. But there's a big learning curve in, like, how do you ask it to do things, and what do you do when you ask it to do something and it gives you back something that's kind of blah, that didn't seem like it really followed your instructions. So there's some limitations with the software right now. Like it talks about tokens. And I don't know exactly what a token is, if it's a certain number of letters or something, but there's a limit of I believe 4,000 tokens in any kind of interchange with it, after which it seems to get kind of tired. So when I would say to it, it was a numbered list, right? So each section, I knew I was going to do it as an independent unit. So I would say, okay, write me 400 to 500 words about this topic. It would come back with 200-300. So then I would say, gee, can't it count? Actually, it's really terrible at counting. I think it can count words, okay, but it's terrible at math. So then I'd say, okay, that's fine, make it longer. It'd give me another 50 words. Okay, make it longer. It's sort of like dealing with a student, a child, that you have to kind of coax often, and you don't just say, give me 500 words and it goes bing, bing, bing. Oh, it takes a few tries. And it's this weird combination. Prompt engineering is this weird combination of art and science, and it can be just so exhilarating if you say, write me 10 tweets about something, and it goes blah, 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 and you've got your 10 tweets. You're like, wow. I asked it to write me a landing page for this white paper. It goes 10 seconds. I think it was 7.5 seconds. It had the thing. And I'm like, I didn't even have time to put my coffee down, and the thing is done, the landing page.
That's amazing.
But it seemed like sometimes, like this introduction, it's good at doing sort of like overview kind of stuff. The list of the 9 things. Oh, it just banged those off. Introduction, it's fine. Then when you dive down, it seemed to get a little tougher. And sometimes it would come up with a great sentence or two. It would tweak the voice if I said make it more conversational. It would combine 2 previous drafts. I'd say put these together. Sometimes it would do it great. Other times it would be like it wasn't even listening to me. Like I wasn't even there, and it would send sort of the same thing over and over and over. And I would say sometimes, drop that first source and put in the second source, and it would like leave them both in there. Another thing it would do that was irritating, it would start paraphrasing. So I got these great sources out of Bing, right? And I paste them in and say, use this source, keep the footnote. And it sort of like paraphrases them and drops the footnote. Like it wasn't even doing what I asked it to do. So I think it's still challenging doing this kind of precise, long form work, and there's a point when it gets tired, and the makers of ChatGPT, the publisher, says like it can only do a certain number of prompts, and then it starts to get a little tired, and
which is so funny. I mean,
yeah,
it's never get tired. Yeah, that cracked me up in reading your, you think it's like yeah. guess
And you
she
listen
said it's
to
like a kid watching Netflix or something like that. A kid not really paying attention, but sort of working on their homework. Um, that cracked me
well,
up.
so
The comparison.
and yeah, so I think the two real big drawbacks are this. Well, it's the toughness. It took me 150 prompts. That's a lot of prompts.
Yeah.
That's hours and hours of prompting, and trying to find the way to go around it. Well, some of that was my learning curve, but some was just asking for the same thing over and over.
Would you remember? So let's say it came back with 300 words. You wanted 500 words. Would you need to paste in its original 300 words again, or in the session it remembers and you said, okay,
With,
that's
within
good.
the
And
session,
okay, okay,
within the session, it seems to remember,
okay, that's really good.
unless it's getting tired, and then it
Yeah,
doesn't remember, and then it's time to start
yeah,
a new session. But um, so I ended up doing 10 drafts. That's a lot of drafts.
yeah.
It's a really lot of drafts, and the style, I it's clear. It's readable. It sounds like a lot of white papers, but it isn't as readable as what I shoot for in a white paper. And I would say it's kind of C level, and I look for B or A level, honestly. And this is confirmed by the readability scores. So the Flesch reading ease is 36 out of 100.
Okay, yeah.
That's pretty bad. The grade level is 13 and a half. That's pretty high. I'll tell you, I shoot for a 50 and a 10.
Okay.
And my afterword, I ran through its part and I ran through my part. My afterword is twice as readable. It instead of a 36, it's getting a 72. And instead of a grade 13 and a half, it's getting a grade 6.5.
You mean, and that
So
means the grade level that it's at?
yeah, the lower
Okay,
the grade
okay,
level,
right,
the
right,
better.
right. And
In a
so
white
what you're
paper,
saying is it's easy to tumble off into really high college level because to be simple and clear is actually the tougher, takes more skill.
yes,
It's
it's
kind of what you're
using big
saying.
words. Now,
Yeah,
I
okay.
never tried, I never said to it, I believe you can say to it, write this at a grade 9 level, write this at a grade 8 level. I believe you can do that, but I didn't try that on this draft. And that's what I'm going to do for sure the next time. Give it some readability metrics. But if you just leave it with it up to its own devices, this is its style. It's clear, it's authoritative, but it's a slog to read. You were saying read through all these 9 points. It takes effort, right? And I think the research was the other thing that really, where it really, really fell down, by just making things up. You can't trust it. Like I left one in. I'll show you. It's Seth Godin.
Oh
There's a
yeah,
quote
yeah.
from Seth
Where did
Godin,
that
right?
show
People buy magic, right? And there it is on
Yeah.
page 8. Marketing expert Seth Godin says people don't buy goods and services, they buy relation stories and magics. AI language models are not capable of creating the magic elements necessary. Well, I agree with that. They're not. But I couldn't find this quote from Seth Godin. It sounds like something he would say, but it didn't know where it came from. And I couldn't find it. And the new Bing couldn't find it. And Google couldn't find it. And Amazon couldn't find it inside any of his books. So it's like, I just left that one in as a kind of little warning to people. And I wondered if anyone would notice that there's no attribution for that,
It's funny because that comes up a lot for me in my writing, where it's like, oh, what a great Mark Twain quote, but then you dig and you go, well, actually, Mark Twain didn't say that. Or also Yogi Berra. There's a whole bunch of Yogi Berra quotes he actually didn't say, but it sounds exactly like something Yogi Berra would say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds
Yeah.
exactly like something Seth Godin would say.
Sure. It does, and so I think one other thing that I found a little bit annoying was it seems to be programmed to give you this kind of like consumer warning,
Okay.
especially on this topic here. So it would be like, of course, it just seemed like some boilerplate that they had programmed in, of course, any humans must always evaluate the output of an AI language model and fact check it and make sure that everything is accurate. It said that just about every answer I asked it. Finally, I asked it, stop saying that. And most of the time it stopped, but a few times it still stuck it in there, right? And it was like 75 words of boilerplate that it said over and over and over and over and over and over, and it had no business in the white paper. Maybe you put it in once, but you don't put it in on every page, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So I think that it's another thing. Another thing it did, um, that I believe I trimmed out. I mean, I trimmed out a few hundred words. I don't think I added any words here, but I trimmed out, some that just didn't fit that well in seconds. I didn't take minutes or hours to do that. Um, it didn't understand that this was a continuous piece, that there were like these 9 pieces and they were all going to be read as discrete things. And so it would in item number 5, it would start talking about item number 6, or it would talk about not understanding human emotion in like several other points. And I think I prefer a numbered list when it deals with the point under that section, and then it deals with another point, and it doesn't muddle them together. It was
Yeah.
muddling. It was
Yeah.
muddling them up, and the conclusion it did was okay. You know, and but this is getting close to the listen. This is getting close to the consumer warning here. About how you always need humans as part of the process. I think it's been programmed to say AI is not going to get rid of any human jobs. And it said find the right balance, but didn't say what is the right balance or how or when or how many resources to commit to each thing. So, I've heard a neat expression about Chat GPT and other language models like this is they regress to the mean. They're not truly original.
Hmm.
They're just making a sensible argument that's based on predicting word frequency, really. So this is like majority opinion that they could find on the web, right? Or on all their training material. This is no insight. This is just like if you ask 100 people, this is kind of the mean of what they'll say. So as far as doing thought leadership stuff, really innovative, insightful content, it can't do it. It can't do it. I don't know if AI will ever be able to do that, because it's as long as we're using this approach where it's trained on a certain amount of data, it's just going to regress to the mean that most people say.
Hmm.
It's not going to take some crazy idea here and some crazy idea there and make up some crazy thing that it never heard from anybody else anywhere, right? It can't do that yet, anyway.
Absolutely. And maybe it will one day, but that's how human leaps, that's how thought leadership happens. Somebody will be reading, comic books over here and watching an opera over here. And it's like these really disparate things suddenly come together in the human mind, and it's like, wow, it enables them to make this leap, right? And
Yeah.
it can only do, it can sort of only play within its own little playground. It can't make those leaps. So probably for a backgrounder, it wouldn't be bad because it can kind of state, well, here's a consensus on whatever. And then for a list, it's not bad if you can
Yeah.
watching
Yeah.
out for kind of what you talked about.
Yeah. 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 And a problem solution, again, that'll be a challenge. It'll be a challenge for it, right? Maybe doing it in sections will be the way to do it. But here's the thing that you pointed out before. It's highlighted here. This is when I went through the first version and I checked its research, and I was so bitterly disappointed that it was all bogus. Fact checking Chat GPT felt like marking a project from a bored high school student who pasted in text from Wikipedia while watching TikTok with their friends. Like, wouldn't you hate to be a high school teacher and be marking things like that? Like,
Oh my gosh. And you know what's funny? When I did my own test with Chat GPT, there's some very, very obscure things that I've done a ton of research on that I'm really interested in. And the knowledge of them is only at a available in obscure journals. And so I go, well, this is great because it's going to know. It's going to be like a professor. It's going to be able to tell me all about this. It's an artifact in the University of Pennsylvania. And so I asked it about it. It hadn't heard of it. It goes, it said it was an engine part. And I'm like, so I went to Wikipedia. I copied the first sentence of the Wikipedia page on this artifact, and it goes, oh yeah, sorry. It's so
Yeah.
it knew, it did know it. And yet the way
Yeah.
that I'd asked it, in fact, I'd even said
Yeah.
it was of a cultural significance, not an engine part. And it's funny because, and it's so
Yeah.
sure. No, that's not. And I go, no, I
Yeah.
think it, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's so sure. I mean, it's like you just want to slap it sometimes, you know? So in
That,
that way, I had to know, it didn't know. You have to know your stuff to be sure that what's coming out of it is thorough. And in another test on that same subject, I asked it some difficulties about it. And I said, so it came up with 4. It was really, really good. And I said, hey, well, what about this? Oh, yeah. And then it just gave me like a nice 400 or 500. But it's like, well, why didn't you? That was very significant. Why didn't you include that
yeah.
in your? So
Yeah.
it's almost like it's like this passive aggressive person that does, well, you didn't ask me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Well, that was you. That would have been good to know. You didn't ask me. So,
Yeah. Well, I think we're back to prompt engineering,
yeah,
like we're going to have to learn. It's going to be a basic skill for many people in many fields to know how to approach this stuff. And it will probably vary a bit product by product, right? And
yeah,
know how to some people say have a relationship with it, know how to ask it to do things and make sure it does them, and treat it nicely so that it goes that extra mile for you and stuff. I found it always very pleasant, but when it would screw up, it would still be pleasant. And it would usually, like a passive aggressive person would usually say, oh, sorry for the confusion, i.e. that you caused, like, sorry for the
they're
confusion. It's just made
in
up
a.
garbage and it's saying confusion. That's not confusion. That's lying.
I'm reading Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy again right now, and it's amazing that so much tech we have now is that he thought of in the book. And one of them is the computer, the super cheery
Oh,
computer that may kill you, but it's a very polite, it's programmed to be polite. So I wanted Gordon. I had 4 things in the first video. I gave 4 things. If someone had just handed me this white paper, hey, what are 4 things you like about it, and or knowing that a computer wrote it. And so I watched the other video if you want to see that. And here I've just got 4 quick things. If somebody handed me this white paper that Gordon and ChatGPT did, by the way, you can get it. You just have to subscribe to his email list, and there's a link to that below. This is what I would say if someone said, hey, here's a white paper, or maybe told me that AI helped write it. This is a little bit of my critique on the on things that could be improved. I felt like, and Gordon said this, the style is a little stilted. And what it's I think most of the points started with the phrase or some variations of phrase AI language models, and it was almost like it was a standalone article, each one, where a human would know, well, we'll switch it up. Let's talk about something that we're talking about AI models, but we don't have to start every sentence with that. A human would see that, and a AI is like, what's wrong with it? Um, it which you said, the whole thing about a number of those impressive sounding quotes didn't exist. And I found that with my own experiment on the other subject, where I was so excited it listed a book that finally had this translation that I had it's outside an obscure scholarly journal. I couldn't find it, and ChatGPT said it's in this book, and I went, there's no book. It does. It I don't know where it got it. I asked it about it. Oh no, it's a book. It's like, no, it does not. I'm in WorldCat libraries. I'm on it's no, it's I mean, I guess it might be on the dark web, but it's not. That book doesn't exist by these
and
two
then it
authors.
says,
So
sorry for the confusion. Yeah.
um this is really funny, and this is kind of a human thing. The whole white paper, it had an artificial feel to me. And we talk about how a white paper, it is a report, but if you put the author's name on there, you want the feeling like it's coming from an expert, like a human. And this just didn't come across like a human had. It was a complete human expert giving me these 9 points. It was kind of a little bit of a laundry list. I mean, not bad, but not up to that level that we think it could be. And then this was a really good question. I mean, it said it was, written for your target audience. It said that. but I don't think it knew who your target audience was, and it just tends to write in general. And I feel like AI is at a huge disadvantage because it's a is it the word simulacrum? It can really sound like, at first listen, it sounds like a white paper written to a specific audience. But when you really look at it, or if you handed it to a person who's got, you know, real life problems, or a writer that kind of is familiar with the hopes and fears and um, pain points of their um, target audience, and also the things they're just going to roll their eyes at, the arguments that they seem really lame. AI can't yet get that there's a human. You need a human to do that, to really make the argument, really persuade. And so I guess that would be my. So as you said, I don't. You definitely, the models are not there to write definitely a problem solution white paper. Just, click, type, please write me a problem solution white
Yeah,
paper on, name your business problem.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
they're not there, and so I think because they don't have actual understanding, they don't understand the human thought process. So for all the foibles and the distractions of a human writer, a human can kind of get into the shoes of his prospect and go, okay, I'm going to convince this guy. He's here. These things, and I kind of know how to hit these things to kind of bring him along. And so anyway, those would be um, my four critiques of this one.
Those are great, Brian. And I want to pick up on one thing you said. They were all really excellent points, but this one about the structure, it seemed to have this canned structure where it would repeat the topic. AI language models have a big limitation in X, and then it would, have a qualifier. They can do this, but they can't do that. And then when I asked for a source, it would always plug in the source as the next paragraph. So
Okay.
it's like writing by the numbers. It's ticking off the numbers, and then it would say da 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 da. A human writer, on the other hand, da 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 da. That would be sort of its wrap up, and then if I left it in there, it would put its consumer warning about humans must always be involved in fact checking anything we produce, but and so it was really, really writing even these different 9 points. Each one of them, it did the following the same kind of wooden structure that would be okay for three of them, but
Yeah. Yeah.
no human would do like the very same thing, and like maybe a bored high school student, but like
Yeah.
no professional writer, they would mix it up a bit. So I asked it. I remember
Exactly.
prompting it. I remember
Okay.
prompting it. Can you mix it up a bit? Can you change the structure on this so it's not the same as all the others? Didn't know what I was talking about. It didn't change, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I guess mix it up doesn't compute.
And so I've heard that they can enter, you enter everything Shakespeare ever wrote, and AI could write maybe a sonnet or a play like Shakespeare. I mean, I don't know. You could enter all the Beatles songs, and AI could create a new Beatles song. I mean, they say, I don't know, you know, and maybe maybe it can, one that wouldn't be a great Beatles song or a great Shakespeare play, but it would pass for it. So I mean, that's kind of the limitation. It's because it's programmed by humans. Yeah, it's sophisticated, but at the end of the day, it's humans programming it and humans writing the rules that it observes. And so
Mhm,
you can't.
mhm.
It's not going to break out and become this great, the floating brain like in Star Trek. It's limited because humans worked on it, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And as I said before, being trained on tens of thousands of white papers, it just picked up the most common approach that they have. So when I said write an introduction, it knew exactly what I was talking about. When I said write a conclusion, it knew what I was talking about. When I said write a call to action, it didn't really
Didn't
know
know.
what I was talking about, because academic white papers don't have that.
That's
Only
true.
only business white papers have that. And so it just put in something about how humans and AI need to work together, and that was it.
Yeah, I know. We want data from Star Trek because he kind of made those leaps. We're not there
Mhm,
yet. We're not there yet.
mhm.
To be
Yeah.
to be helpful and consider things. Well, as I've said before, you can get this white paper, and Gordon. I mean, the white paper is great, and then Gordon did an afterword with his. It's got all these notes, and it's just you. It's terrific. It's I again I would say it's something I would pay for. You can get it free by signing up for his email list, and we have the link below. We're going to continue looking into AI, both of us, and we're going to continue to have that subject because that's coming into white papers, and there are some definite things that white papers are good for, that AI is good for when writing white papers, and we do talk about those at the end of the other videos. So, Gordon, anything else? Anything we've left out?
Well, I think I want to carry on with what you started there. White papers are kind of at the frontier of what AI can do, right? They can do tweets. They can do short little tweets. They can do landing pages. They can do short little emails. You can train them on a little bit of your content. You can paste in, and I think there's services now, if you buy them, if you're a big enterprise, where you can put in everything on your website, and it will be able to match your tone kind of in your language and things. But white papers are right up there at the edge of what it can do and what it can't do right now. So I think it's a really interesting area to look at this stuff and to assure ourselves that humans are still needed out there. I think what if I look ahead to the future of content writing, I think that AI is going to sort of like decimate. It's going to be like a bomb going off on the low end of the market. Anybody that's just writing for pennies a word, writing what Bob Bly calls Google goulash, where you search a few articles and then rehash it and put it back together. AI can do that faster and better than you. So you better up your game. If you're writing sort of like clickbait headlines and stuff that's just SEO'd to hell and back, and really Me Too content that says the same thing everybody else said. I mean, I had a client once that said, or a prospect that said, we want to write a white paper about how to pick an ERP system. I went and Googled how to pick an ERP system. They were way behind the curve. There was something like 2,000 other articles about how to pick an ERP system. What could they possibly do that would be new? AI can do that, so you've got to be, white papers are great because they're often talking about new technology or new ideas that haven't been written to death already. They're talking about things that only one company has, so you have to interview the experts at that company, and that white paper may be the first kind of publication or one of the very first that comes out that's about that topic. AI doesn't know anything about that. So there's prospects. There's still an excellent niche for writers to work on white papers, but we gotta be aware of what AI can do and how to use it. Because look, if an AI can research a white paper in a few minutes, and somebody like me takes a week, I can't compete. I can't price a white paper the same way as a writer that's using AI. So that's why I'm kind of urging all writers to follow this stuff, find out about it, and if you're going to resist and not adopt it, not learn about it all, you got to double down on what only a human can do, right? And that is tell stories, interview other humans, crack jokes, tell personal anecdotes. And in my afterword, I did that. In my afterword, I told this personal anecdote from years ago, right, where a guy was bringing in digital typesetting. I threw that in there.
Yeah.
I threw that in there as it's almost a page of the afterword, but I thought it was relevant. And that's the thing that AI can't do. It's got no personal experience. It's got no anecdotes. It's got no stories it can tell. It's got no experience. So we can bring our human experience and our human kind of emotional intelligence to the keyboards and still write rings around this stuff. If we remember, that's what we got to do.
Absolutely, yeah. And actually, the point we keep coming back to, it's kind of scary because a lot of AI generated stuff is going to sound great, and from our experience, it just may not be true. So isn't that funny? You'd think it would be more accurate, and it actually might just be way less accurate than the old, getting it out of a trade magazine where a human actually looked up the reference. So
yeah.
Well, anyway, we're gonna be talking more on this subject. Love to get your comments and questions below. Sign up for that email list. Get get the white paper that was written by AI along with the commentary. And if you haven't yet subscribed, also down below, if you need to be writing a white paper today or you need to learn about them, we have links to tools below on both of our websites. Thank you so much for listening if you've listened this far, and we will talk to you again soon. Bye.
Thank you.